everybody, how you doing? Lindsay here one more time on The Drum Mission. I have been procrastinating about this video. I didn't put out a video last week. Well, really, I had to do a bunch of extra Uber work to make money. The end of May was a little bit rough, but I made a little promise to myself, no more Uber. I'm done. And I'm going to try to move this year, taking you with me. We talked about that. Nobody's really come through with any support for that, but I'm doing it anyway. All right. I was procrastinating about this video because I always have misgivings about the talking head videos, where I'm going to just do something where I'm talking about something. And for whatever reason, and I don't want to go on about like low self-esteem, I got some, but I have a hard time looking at my own face, because I'm ugly. You want a second opinion? I'm stupid too. That kind of thing is always in my head.
Hey, kid, I know I'm ugly. I stuck my head out the window, got arrested for mooning.
So it's hard for me to do these, but I'm going to do it anyway. I always end up going down the rabbit hole, little things on the internet, and then I get my opinions about it, and I want to speak. And now I have a platform, and I got some people watching. We're up to over 890 subscribers. We're on our way to 1,000. That's the goal. After that, we'll see. So we're going to be talking about comparison or review comparison between the Beatles' Let It Be, the restored version, or Get Back, the Peter Jackson 9-hour series on the Beatles based on the same footage. And I'm going to tell you what I like and what I don't like about it, and what I think is good and what I think is bad. And it may surprise you. Before I get into all the nooks and crannies of what's right and wrong on each, I want to let the cat out of the bag and just tell you right up front, I personally, between the two, Get Back and Let It Be, I enjoy certainly the restored version of Let It Be better than the 9 hours, and it's not quite 9 hours, but it's close, of Get Back. And let's first talk about why I think Let It Be gets a bad rap, and one of the main problems with Let It Be. So the movie Let It Be was directed or produced, you can say, filmed by a prominent director at the time, Michael Lindsay Hogg. And the problem that is with the movie itself when it was first released was, and this isn't Michael Lindsay Hogg's fault. He shouldn't bear the blame for this. By the way, I'm wearing my glasses because sinus problems, my eyes get a little puffy, so I'm covering it with the glasses. You can't see the problems in my left eye at the moment as much. I'm ugly enough. Okay, so Michael Lindsay Hogg was hired to make a made-for-TV movie that would have how the Beatles make their tunes, and the payoff would be a big concert in Africa. They were talking about on a big ship. They were talking about some theaters in London. They were talking about all these different places. But it would be, all right, this is how we make the soup, and then here's the soup. And they were thinking they would get the footage of all of them working out the tunes and just have little pieces of that, but the main payoff would be, the concert, the big concert, lots of people, yay, the Beatles are back playing in front of people again, but do it on television so the whole world can see, right? That was the original thing. That was the concept Michael Lindsay Hogg had. And I'm going to let him tell it to you right now. This is from the beginning of the restored version of Let It Be. Michael Lindsay Hogg is talking with Peter Jackson.
Yeah, one of the fascinating things about Let It Be, it was originally going to be a concert movie with the Beatles. But then after about 10 days, we're not doing a concert anymore. We're doing a documentary.
We began, when we started working at Twickenham, with several ideas. Ringo thought, well, maybe we should do it at the Cavern and honor that first place for them. And I said, yeah, but it's too small for what I think the world wants now for a Beatles concert. And also because Hey Jude was a very influential experience for them. And what was more important was that in the breaks, when the tapes were being re-put on the video machines, they had nothing to do except play for the people in the room. They were sitting in their rostrum, actually they played Buddy Holly and Tamla Motown's songs they loved. And they got a big buzz out of playing to people again. And that's what made them think they could do a concert again. It all goes back to Hey Jude. So then I'm thinking, well, if we're going to do a Beatles concert, what do I think a Beatles concert should be? And I think a Beatles concert should be a historic event.
Okay, but that's not what was able to happen. As time went on, this is January of 1969, and the Beatles can't decide. Do they want to not just make they're going to do a documentary on the recording of an album? Are they not going to play a concert? Are they going to do it? Are they going to do it here? Are they going to do it there? They have no idea. And poor Michael Lindsay Hogg, as a director, as a person putting this together, the premise he's starting with, now he's realizing this ain't going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. And he's spending 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day in that studio recording, paying film crews, and he doesn't know what's going to happen. Top that off, he can see, as we can all see, some of the tension in the band. If this blows up, am I going to be out a lot of money? All this I would believe is going through his head at the time for Let It Be. So, what comes out is kind of disjointed, and it seems like there's no real direction that they're going except for the rooftop concert. For me, the evidence that he was beginning to think, well, maybe this is just going to be, in case this all blows up, maybe I'm going to take all my footage and make it a documentary of the breakup of the Beatles. Well, how can you say that, Glenn? Well, that hidden camera, that you don't see it till Peter Jackson's version in Get Back, but somebody hit a microphone in a room for Paul and John to talk about George's leaving and how they were going to get him back and the problems that were in the band. And you don't hide a microphone unless you're thinking, okay, well maybe I can really talk about this whole problem that's going on in the Beatles, and maybe I can make some money. So there's that. You see that happen, but it doesn't come out in the original Let It Be. It doesn't come out in the original Let It Be. What I like about the original Let It Be is all the music you get. Because the movie's only like an hour and 40 minutes, is you just get a lot of songs. You get a lot of songs. So you see them rehearsing these different tunes, and yes, you see some of the fun and games where they're doing songs with different accents and that kind of thing. And then you see the rooftop concert. So when you think about the amount of time that it takes to watch Get Back and the amount of music you get, and then you think about the amount of time of Let It Be, which is only an hour and 40 minutes, in opposition to 9 hours of Get Back, you get almost the same amount of music in both movies. And for me, that's what makes Let It Be so enjoyable. To me, Let It Be is like a way before MTV was MTV, like, an hour and 41 minute version of an MTV thing, which wasn't going to happen for another 20 years. And so that's what's so cool about it, all the music. Now, do I think Michael Hogg could have made it a little bit longer, even from the music standpoint? Well, how about introducing Billy Preston? He just shows up. All of a sudden, there's this African-American dude that's playing. Who's he? We don't know. Okay, well, tell us. I mean, we know now, but tell us. All of a sudden, there's Billy Preston. Okay, he's here. All right, so, but I don't leave that at the feet completely of Michael Hogg, because he was then here's the clincher on this is he was trying to make a made-for-TV movie in 16 millimeter, and then at the end they realized, oh, we're not doing that either now. We're going to make it for the big screen, and we got to blow it up to 35 millimeter. And so it's kind of grainy, and the technology wasn't like it is today. You get all these problems with that, right? And now he's got, okay, I don't want to do a 4-hour movie. It's no longer a made for TV thing. So there's a whole bunch of stuff he has to leave out. So we see the little argument between George and Paul, but then, he leaves out him leaving. So there's this other big hole he leaves. So there's a whole bunch of holes in the thing. But if you put that aside, because we know all about what happened now, when you look at Let It Be as them rehearsing and then playing and just the music, and try to put out of your mind all the things that Get Back put in, I think it's a great movie. All right, now let's talk a little bit about Get Back. We're going to come back to Let It Be, but let's talk a little bit about Get Back. Peter Jackson's idea was, I'm going to be a fly on the wall. I'm going to make us a fly on the wall. He had 60 hours of film to look through and 150 hours of audio. So he gets the idea, and it's a good idea. We're going to be a fly on the wall. I'm going to make no judgments about what happened. I'm going to make no judgments about the tension. We're just looking in the window to watch these 4 guys do what they do and be who they are, the good and the bad. We're going to see the good, which is the tunes and them having fun with each other, and we're going to see the bad, which is the arguments and the fights, and I'm going to let the people decide what they want about this. So when I watch Get Back, now I've watched it in total, which is almost 9 hours, and that's a bit of an exaggeration, but each episode is well over 2 hours, some close to 3. So you're really talking about 8-9 hours. So I've watched about 24 hours more. No, if I include when I watched it the original time, the very first time, 4 times through. So it's like 32 hours of Get Back, of that stuff. So you're a fly on the wall and you're watching the whole thing unfold. That is kind of cool. It's like a reality show. It's like a reality show way before reality shows are reality shows. But I'm going to be honest with you. The thing I don't like about Get Back is it just goes on too long and there's a lot of repetition. And as where I watched Let It Be for about the same amount of times, I watched it twice this week. Well, last week, it's Monday. And I watched it when it first got issued. I think, what was it, May 9th or May 8th or something. And, of course, I watched it a couple times before that. And in the old version. So I've watched it several times. So I can watch Let It Be again and again and again. I can't do that with Get Back. And, again, some of it is a little bit tedious. There are certain scenes, so I understand him wanting to be the fly on the wall. But my question is, do we need to see every little thing? I like that we see them do a little Scottish version of Two of Us. But there's 3 or 4 other versions of them doing Two of Us with different accents and being silly. Do we have to see all of them? Do we have to see Peter Sellers? Like, even as a reality show, does that advance a storyline for anybody? Because even Peter Jackson, as a director, had to be able to see, as he's watching this footage, you've got the storyline of George and Paul. You've got the storyline of John and Paul. You got kind of Ringo's storyline, and he looks like he doesn't know what's going to happen next. He's there until it's over, and he feels his band is coming apart. And that's the impression I get from Ringo while he's there. He feels everything's falling apart, but he's going to do his best. He's going to do his best. And I think what Ringo says, I'm going to play this for you right now, really sums up where Ringo was during this time?
Well, there were all those stories at the time. There's stories about almost everything.
Yeah.
About how you didn't get along.
No. We didn't get along. We were poor guys. We had rows. It never got in the way of the music, no matter how bad the row was. Once the counting, we all gave our best. And that was a little later, too.
They were having troubles getting along, but once they started to play, everything was great. Once they started to play, they got down to business. And that's the other storyline that Peter Jackson could see. And I think having some of the extraneous stuff doesn't really help that storyline. Again, you say, well, Glenn, you're saying he wasn't having a storyline, but certain little storylines come out. And my question is to Peter Jackson, does 9 hours best suit this? Best suit this reality show? Do we get any more of reality by Peter Sellers' visit? By seeing John Lennon butter toast? Is there any more of that reality show that we get from that? So I like a lot of Get Back. What I don't like is its length. And some of it, I'm going to be honest with you, all right, I've seen them do 5 different versions of Get Back or Don't Let Me Down. I'm fast forwarding through this one. All right, I get that that's cute, they're being silly. I'm fast forwarding. Where I don't fast forward and Let It Be. So there's my negatives on these two things. What I like about Get Back is he includes those things I wish were in Let It Be. I wish there was a little more of the fly on the wall in Let It Be. Like the fact that in Let It Be we see the argument between George and Paul, but we don't see George leaving. That seems silly. My question to Michael Lindsay Hogg is, if you're going to leave that in, when you thought this was going to be a rehearsal then concert, why not put him leaving? I don't know, or take both scenes out. In Get Back, he has both in, and I like that you see that dynamic because it helps me to understand. I think that Get Back definitely shows a wider range of some of the tension. You kind of see the perfectionism and the kind of strong hand that Paul was using to get the result that he had in his mind, which was becoming a problem for the other three, especially for John. You kind of see that prevalent. And in Get Back, you kind of see John getting checked out. And for me, the moment for that is when John Lennon and Yoko are waltzing. And he says in the video that he feels that both himself, that is John, and Paul have sort of shunned George. And George is showing them, I mean mine. And John is sort of saying, okay. And he goes and has a dance with Yoko. Where Paul is actually trying to figure out the chords and watch what he's playing. So you get that thing that John is sort of really divorcing himself, and that really comes out in Get Back, that he's sort of done. And I'm not blaming it on John, not blaming it on Paul. These are the dynamics that were at play, and this comes out in Get Back. These are storylines that come out in this reality show called Get Back that you miss in Let It Be, which either I would have rather had none of it in or all of it. If you're going to put some of it in, where George and Paul are having the fight, then I think for Michael Lindsay Hogg, he needed to put all of it in. And for Peter Jackson, he does leave all that in, and it should have stayed in, but some of the other stuff, Peter Sellers coming in, some of that stuff, every little time they fooled around with a tune, I don't think all that was necessary, and maybe we could have had a slightly shorter, more watchable film that we could watch over and over and over and over. All right, my final part is production quality. So the software that Peter Jackson was using is called MAL.
So what we did is to investigate a technology that's been talked about called demixing, which is you take a mono track of performance and you can split all the instruments in a machine learning AI way. So we looked at that and we tried some various, and I thought it was a thing because I'd read about it, that we couldn't find any machine learning that kind of worked. Well, it sort of worked, but it was bad. So we had some very clever people down here in New Zealand where we said to them, can you actually write and develop machine learning, take the machine learning idea and actually make it work? So they came up with a system that works great. amazing, and that was a huge breakthrough.
But two things. Mal is kind of named after Hal from 2001 Space Odyssey, and if we remember Hal, here he is.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
Hal, and I can't remember what Hal stood for, what the name Hal stood for, but Mal stands for either machine audio learning or machine assisted learning. And a form of this is also used on the filming. So if you look at the two things, and I'm going to have, I'll notate it, you just see my talking head above, the ghost of the machine. In comparison, Get Back versus Let It Be, this software that he's using, that Peter Jackson's using, is a learning software. So as it goes, it gets better and better and better. So the problems with Get Back, and this is not only a problem I have, but if you go around YouTube and listen, you'll hear this over and over and over again, that in Get Back, the Beatles look a little cartoonish. Paul's hair looks a little too black. His face a little too white. The colors behind them are a little too bright, right? The whole scene is a little cartoonish as Mal is learning how to do this. Now, cut to 2 years later, Mal goes back and Peter Jackson says, okay, let's do this with Let It Be. It's a little more realistic. The colors are a little toned down. Paul's face doesn't look so perfectly white. His hair isn't perfectly black. Same thing with John. You see the different shades. So Mal does a better job with Let It Be than it does with Get Back, only because Mal had time to learn. Also, in the audio department, so I'm only going to compare the Concert on the Roof. And I listened to both of those, the Concert on the Roof and Let It Be, and I listened to the Concert on the Roof and Get Back, and I must have listened to each one 4, 5, maybe 6 times. I think I watched Let It Be's version more. So in the Get Back version, you really get defined bass. Very CD quality, digital quality bass. In the song Get Back, the song Get Back and the movie Get Back, you really hear in that rooftop that bass drum, boom, 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 boom. And I have a subwoofer on my system, and it kind of kills me a little bit. I got to tone it down. I got to, mess with my dials to tone that down a little bit because it bugs me. When you watch that same tune, Get Back, in Let It Be, the bass drum sounds a little muddier. The whole bottom end is a little muddier. You get a little more mid-range. The highs aren't so high. Overall, you get a little more mid. And here's my thing. Have you ever gone to a concert? If you go to a live concert, it's going to be muddier. The only concert I've ever been to that had really defined, like a really defined bass drum and bass lines that you heard so crystal clear was Pink Floyd. Otherwise, it gets a little more muddy and, to me, a little warmer. It's just a little more like a live show, especially like a live show in 1969. When I go to a concert, whether it's to go see Springsteen or go see, the last person I saw was Oznoy. I saw Oznoy with Dennis Chambers on drums. Amazing. It was pretty clean, but it wasn't perfectly clean. And there was rumble, and there was a little distortion. And you don't get as much of that in the Get Back versions as you do in the Let It Be. You get a little more distortion, a little more mud, and in Get Back, it's cleaned up a little bit. And I think that takes away from the live concert. So I prefer the Let It Be audio to the Get Back audio. Not in the rehearsal tunes. I like hearing a little definition of the rehearsal tunes. But in the concert, and that's what I'm talking about. Like the bass drum bugs me. in the song Get Back, in the movie Get Back, or the series Get Back, but doesn't in Let It Be. So, my final thoughts. As if there needs to be one more Beatles movie. Suppose we put in some of the things that Michael Lindsay Hogg left out. Suppose we take out some of the overkill in the Get Back version. Suppose we cut down that 8-9 hours to 4, maybe a little under. A little more like in the Irishman from Martin Scorsese territory. Still watchable. Still watchable in one sitting if you got the night, maybe 3.5, 4 hours. And we use the Mal software now that it's learned more. And we have a new movie, and Peter Jackson, if you want me to help you do this, fly me out to England and we'll do it together, you and me, buddy. 10, 15 grand and I'm yours, like for a month. We'll call it Let It Be Back. You know what? And that might be something that we could watch over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Feel free to comment. Feel free. You know what? You're right. You're ugly and stupid too. Let me know what you liked about Get Back, what you didn't like about Get Back, what you liked about Let It Be, what you didn't like about Let It Be. There's no right or wrong answers. These are just my thoughts. All right, guys. I will see you on the next one. Back to the woodshed. I may have a nice surprise for you. See you in the next one, guys.